What's going on, everybody? American Football Network here with another video today. And today we're bringing you guys a video reacting to Boston College stunning Florida State 28-13 last night. And just looking ahead, what's next for Florida State and the Seminoles. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Help me reach that goal of 1,400 subscribers by the end of September. Check out the description for links to our shop, podcast, website, patron page, and our college football roundup channel. Appreciate all of you guys checking us out and all the support we've gotten this past month. I think we're over 33,000 views we've gotten just in the last 2 days. So let's keep that going. Let's keep growing. But let's jump into today's video and get started. So what is next for Florida State? They're 0-2 to start the season. First team or one of 3 teams at all time, I believe, maybe one of 4, to start the season 0-2, being ranked in the top 10 for both games. Obviously, this is a little different because they were ranked top 10 in the preseason poll, and then the new poll hasn't come out. They played in week 0, but still the point stays the same. They're 0-2. They were a team that whined and cried, quite honestly, all offseason about how they should have been in the playoff last year and how this was going to be some sort of revenge tour for them this year. But so far not shaping up to be. They're already 0-2, and not just 0-2 on the season, but 0-2 in conference play, which really hurts their chances of, of making the playoff. At this point, they have to win the ACC if they want to get in the playoff. They're not getting in if they don't win the ACC championship, because that means at the least they have 3 losses and are not a conference champion. They have to get that automatic bid. And it's not shaping up to be very good for them, especially when you look at the schedule ahead that they're faced with in conference play as well. They started off week 0, lost to Georgia Tech 24-21. And then last night, Boston College beat them 28-13. In that game, BC held Florida State to just 21 rush yards and I believe like 1.3 yards a carry. It was rough. It was rough. Florida State went 3 of 14 on third downs, 1 for 3 on fourth downs. Only had 293 yards of total offense. Boston College just dominated both lines of scrimmage. Florida State couldn't get a run game going. BC also got 3 sacks in there. But on top of that, on the offensive side for the Eagles, they ran for 263 yards and 5.1 yards a carry. They just manhandled Florida State up front, and the lines of scrimmage were supposed to be the strengths of this Florida State team. The defensive line was supposed to be the strength of this defense, while the offensive line was supposed to be the strength of the offense, with a lot of unknowns around it at receiver and quarterback, and honestly, even a little bit running back. And you look at what this team has done, and what they thought was going to be strengths going into the season have not been at all. They also added in 7 penalties for 50 yards. I thought this stat was pretty funny. Alex Mastromano, the punter, he punted for 313 yards in the game last night. That's 20 more yards than the offense put up. But yeah, going back to those lines of scrimmage, so far on the year, Florida State averages just 2.5 yards a carry, which is not good at all. And it's not like they're going up against great defensive lines. They haven't even played Clemson or Miami yet, or Notre Dame. They're not going up against these just outstanding defensive lines. Don't get me wrong, Georgia Tech and BC have solid defensive lines, but they're nowhere near top 10 in the country like Clemson's D-line is, like Notre Dame's D-line is, like Miami's could shape up to be. It's definitely top 15. And on the flip side, their defensive line hasn't lived up to that top 10 D-line that we thought they would be. They're allowing 226 rush yards a game. That is 123rd in the country. Obviously, still very early in the season. Most teams have just played 1 game. But 5.1 yards per carry they're allowing on the season. In both of these games, they have been manhandled on the lines of scrimmage, and that's been the difference. Not only that, DJ had all this hype coming into the season. Didn't understand that really either. He wasn't very good at Clemson outside of his freshman year in those 2 games against Boston College and Notre Dame. He wasn't good at Clemson at all for the rest of that time. And then he transferred to Oregon State. People acted like he did a lot better, but, really he didn't. You look at his stats were the same. He hasn't completed 60% of his passes outside of that freshman season in the 2 games that he started. He hasn't completed 60% of his passes since then. He's been sitting around 58%, 57%, which is where he's at right now. On the year, DJ so far is 40 of 69, which is a 58% completion percentage for 465 yards of 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Nothing special. This is shaping up to be like his first year as the full-time starter at Clemson, where he completed, I believe, like 57.3% of his passes, 9 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Just hasn't been a good season for him up to this point. And still early, just 2 games, but this is a guy with a track record of past. And the biggest concern offensively for Florida State is on the season, they're 8 of 26 on third down. That they're only converting third downs 30.8% of the time. When you play these elite teams and these good teams that you think that you can compete with, or at least I'm sure a lot of Florida State fans probably don't think that now, but at least that you thought you could over the offseason, that's not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. That might not even cut it against, a team like Duke with a solid defense they have. And so, when the biggest question for me with Florida State is if or when do they switch to Brock at quarterback? Because DJ is just clearly not going to cut it. He's just clearly not going to cut it. In the Georgia Tech game, you put up 21 points of offense, but literally none of that had to do with him. He's not throwing the ball down the field at all, and when he does, it's highly inaccurate. Most of his pass attempts this season have been less than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. And the Georgia Tech game at halftime, his average yards in air for the pass was negative 0.1, I believe, or 0.01, something like that. He wasn't even averaging a yard in air on his passes at halftime of that game. They're not pushing the ball down the field with him, and for good reason, because he simply just can't. He can't do it accurately. You watched last night, it had a wide open guy in the corner of the end zone and completely overthrew him. He wasn't even really all that pressured. All he had to do was drop back and just give a nice little toss to him, and he's got a touchdown. And instead, he throws it out the back of the end zone. But it's not all on DJ. Like I said, the offensive line isn't blocking. They've had really no sort of run game on the season. They got a little bit going in the first half against Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech shut that down quick in the second half. Last night, they never had it going. The receivers last night, drops are a big key as well. With some of these receivers, we saw it multiple times last night. DJ does actually make a solid pass and hit somebody, and they just drop the football. And that's something you got to do better than that. You have to be able to complete and take these easy passes that the defense has given you. You just have to do it. So as we look ahead towards what's left in the season for Florida State, they get Memphis next week. That is not, they get a bye week, then they get Memphis. Bye week, then Memphis. That's not a guaranteed win whatsoever. It's going to be a home game for you. That helps a little bit. But Memphis has an elite offense. They do. Seth Hennigan at quarterback, Rock Taylor at receiver. They have some studs on the outside at receiver that are going to make plays for them. Their receivers and their quarterback coming in are better than yours. And so this game really concerns me for Florida State. They better get a lot of work done in this bye week, or Memphis is going to walk in and they're going to beat them too. It's very possible that happens. And then you look, they get Cal. Cal doesn't seem like a huge threat, but when you consider their best player on offense, who, in my opinion, is probably the second best running back behind Amari and Hampton in the ACC and Jaden Ott, this is a team who could come out and run for 300 yards on you. They really could. It's not. There's no guarantees on this schedule other than Charleston Southern for Florida State. Not a single one. Then you got to go on the road to SMU, another team who elite offense, Preston Stone, great quarterback, outstanding quarterback. It's a game you could lose. Then you get Clemson at home. Clemson didn't look good at all in that game against Georgia. But Clemson's strength of this offense is the run game and that offensive line. Phil Maffa and the boys up front. Clemson very well may just hand the ball off to Phil Maffa 45 times in this game and just pound it down your throat, run for 400 yards, and beat you. I think you lose that game to Clemson. At Duke, a Friday night in Durham. Again, another team that and the mobile quarterbacks have really been killing Florida State. Boston College did it with Castellanos. Georgia Tech did it with Haynes King. These quarterbacks can get out and run. That really hurts them. You look at Duke in Miami and North Carolina, all three of those teams with excellent running quarterback, even Notre Dame with Riley Leonard. Like, this could shape up to be a 7-5 season for Florida State. As of right now, I think they lose to Clemson. I think they lose to Miami. I think they lose to Notre Dame. I could see them losing to Memphis, Duke, SMU, North Carolina, and Florida. I mean, they get Florida in November. Who knows what Florida is going to be in November? Who knows what they're going to be like. So this is a team for Florida State that they better get everything figured out in this bye week, or it's going to be a long rest of the season for the Seminoles and their fans, because things have not looked good to start this season. They've looked, quite honestly, pretty terrible. And yeah, the biggest question for me is, when is it time to bench DJ and move on to somebody else at quarterback? That's something we'll have to find out. At the way he's playing right now, I don't think he makes it through the whole season. I don't think he does. I don't think he makes it through the whole season. And as of right now, I have Florida State finishing, and they've already got 2 losses. As of right now, I have Florida State going 7-5, and that's how I think they'll finish, missing the ACC championship, obviously.